So I remember the first time I got a floor time call. Now, I mean, in today's world, do you know what a floor time call is? Back when I was selling real estate for my dad, we covered floor time, and that was we would sit on the phones and we had 3-hour shifts, and whomever got the calls from buyers got to work those buyers. Or if we happened to have a call-in listing, like somebody'd call in and say, hey, I want to interview, my dad's firm was Hague Realtors, want to interview somebody at Hague Realtors. If I was the one that picked up the phone during my floor time, then I would get to go on the appointment. So I remember on my very first floor time, it was like a Saturday, and Saturday was a pretty good time, and I was out at a branch office, and I got this call, and it was from a home seller, and he said, yeah, I wanted to interview Hague Realtors, somebody from Hague Realtors, potentially sell my home along with a couple other Cincinnati real estate firms. I was so excited. So I made the appointment. I made it for Sunday night, and I called my dad. I said, Dad, I got my first call-in listing and have an appointment. And he said, when? And I said, tomorrow night, Sunday night. And he says, well, did you try to get the appointment tonight? And I said, no. I wanted to make sure I have time to drive by the house, check it out, look at the comps and just be all prepared. I mean, I was kind of nervous. I didn't want to do it right away. And he says, Greg, he said, that is awful. That is like the worst thing you could do. I said, what do you mean? He said, you don't understand when time is on your side and when it's not. And I said, what do you mean when time's on my side? He said, think about this. From the time that seller called and said that they would meet with you until the time you go over there, only bad things can happen. Like they could list with somebody else, they could decide not to sell, the house could explode, it could burn down, who knows? But the bottom line is, the only thing that can happen is bad. He said, Greg, he said, number one, obviously, whenever anybody calls and they're interested in selling their home, you don't immediately say, I'll be there in an hour, just do whatever it takes, get yourself together, and you want to be there as soon as you can. But he said, you want to remember for the rest of your life everything that happens all day long. Think about whether time is on your side or whether it's not, whether time is working for you or whether it's not. And I cannot tell you how much money that's made me over the years, how many decisions I've made that were better decisions because I was always thinking, is time working for me or time working against me? I mean, most obvious situations, like say you're buying a car. Well, if you've got the money and they've got the car, cars go down in value. And so by delaying a decision to buy almost anything, you're probably going to get a better deal at a later time. On the other hand, if you're a seller, obviously you've got a buyer. That buyer, you lose that buyer. Time is working against you because generally stuff goes down in value over time because better stuff gets invented and made. But there's so many other situations, like the number of times I've been on the phone talking with people and trying to decide whether I should say something now or say it later or maybe not say it at all. And so many times I've decided to say it now because I figure time was the right time to say this. And other times I've decided not to say it now because I thought, it just might be more impactful later. Or maybe if it was bad news, I'd never have to say it at all because so many times bad news turns to good news. And that's really kind of the sub-lesson here is when you hear bad news, so many people, when I think about if a horrible thing happens in the backyard and a plane crashes or something in the backyard, everybody just spreads it around, hits the news. I mean, think of the news as just like a total proliferator of bad news. But the lesson Dad taught me is a sub-lesson to know when time's on your side and when it's not, and always be thinking about that is rush with good news, drag your feet with bad. Because I know in the years I was practicing law, so in all the years that I've been training in real estate and selling real estate, sometimes taking a real estate situation, you might get a call from the co-broke agent who sold your listing and they say, oh, bad news, the buyer is having a hard time getting the loan. Well, I mean, first thing so many agents do is they'll call the seller and they'll say, oh gosh, bad news, the buyer is struggling to get a loan. It's not like what you want to do. What you want to do is see what you can do to solve the problem and turn bad news into good news. So you don't rush with bad news. You do rush with good news. You try to make bad news good news before you spread it around. And that's just an adjunct. That's just a part of always thinking with everything that happens every day, every phone call, everyone you meet with. Try to think to yourself, is time on my side or is it not? And if you'd like to learn some other creative real estate strategies, come on over to realestatemavericks.com, where we really are writing the creative playbook on how you can win in real estate.